afternoon, everyone. Great to see you. I'm TIFF's Industry Director, Katharine, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the final of 3 exclusive sessions we have in partnership with The Guardian. A reminder, please, that no photography or video recording is allowed inside the studio. Please do tweet using the hashtags on the screen behind me to keep the conversation going with our online audience. We couldn't be more thrilled to welcome an iconic stage and screen legend, a woman who is one of the most versatile and best-loved performers in cinema today. Our host is Peter Bradshaw, who was the influential and highly regarded chief film critic of The Guardian in London, where he has worked for 18 years. He has also published 3 novels, Lucky Baby Jesus, Dr. Sweet and His Daughter, and Night of Triumph. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Peter Bradshaw, who will introduce our special guest.
Thank you very much. My name is Peter Bradshaw. As Kathleen kindly said, I am the chief film critic of The Guardian. As ever, I want to thank Cameron Bailey, Piers Handling, and Kathleen herself for inviting me to moderate this very, very special Guardian TIFF talk about a very, very special person. As we say in Britain, I am over the moon and over all the other planets and Alpha Centauri as well to be welcoming this legend of Hollywood and Broadway. 6 Oscar nominations, 2 Golden Globes, 3 Emmys, goodness knows how many Tonys and other baubles and awards. Before anything happens at all, I want to play in a clip from the movie that she's presenting here at TIFF. It is one of the best movies here, and that's saying an awful lot. So, ladies and gentlemen, before anything happens at all, let's watch this clip from The Wife. Ladies and gentlemen, please will you welcome Glenn Close. Glenn, well done again on The Wife, which I think is such an amazing movie. I'm very, very excited about it. I'm excited even watching that again because that clip brings us tantalizingly close to an enigmatic center of the movie. I'm kind of relieved that we cut it there. But it's such a superb movie. It's like an old-fashioned drama driven by character, story, high IQ stuff in the movies, which is such a relief, but above all, this fantastic, for me personally and for the rest of you as well, of course. But high IQ is certainly what it is, and high passion as well. But this is such an amazing performance. I want to ask you, first of all, I've got a lot of questions about this movie, but first of all, how did you come to this movie? How did it come along? What first attracted you to it? How did it swim into your eye line, as it were?
I think it came through my agent, who might be here. I would say it might have come through Jane Anderson, the writer.
Right.
And Jane Anderson is somebody who I've always wanted to work with.
Okay.
So that was tantalizing for me. And it was based on a novel by Meg Wolitzer, right. Which is full of wonderful, ironic humor and this amazing story. And then they flew Bjorn Runge over from Sweden, and we met down in the Village in New York. And it was kind of, that thing where we're seeing, could I work with you, Well, the little, your antenna are up, and there was something about Bjorn that just, I thought, yes, I want to work with this man. And that was the beginning. Amazing. It was very hard to raise money for this movie, as you can imagine.
Well, exactly. It's not a movie which, it's not, I'll get on to talking about superheroes in a minute, but it's not a superhero movie, and the industry sometimes seems to be interested in nothing else sometimes. But can we say a little bit about the film? Describe, Glenn plays a character called Joan Castleman, who is the wife of many years to a very well-known author who is a kind of Saul Bellow figure, a giant of the literary scene, who is on the verge of a moment of extraordinary triumph and greatness in his career. And he is played wonderfully, of course, by Jonathan Pryce, the British actor Jonathan Pryce. And his triumph triggers a kind of complex, subtle, what you might call a late-life crisis in Joan herself. And part of what's so wonderful about the movie is this crisis is transmitted so subtly by your performance. It's not just simply anger or whatever, but it's so many other things as well. But what was it like working with Jonathan?
I loved it. Before we started working, I saw him in The Merchant of Venice at the Old Globe, and I think it's one of the best theater performances I will see in my life. He was extraordinary, heartbreaking, kind of revelatory, that whole production. So I was thrilled to be working with Jonathan.
Right.
And I think we worked a lot. We rehearsed for about a week, sitting around a table.
Okay.
Yeah, in Glasgow. We shot it in Glasgow.
Oh, in Glasgow. Oh,
yes,
okay.
in Glasgow.
I wondered about that. Yes.
Glasgow/Stockholm.
Yeah. So you shot it in. Glasgow stood in for Stockholm.
Yes, we did go to Stockholm at the end for some
to shoot some
crucial
exterior
shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And of course, one of the amazing things about it is that it's a lead film for a woman who is of some mature years. And if you'll forgive, okay, forgive that vulgar expression. I apologize. I withdraw it. Sorry.
I know, it's because I let my hair grow white,
I know.
right?
It's unparliamentary language, and I withdraw it. But I wanted to ask you, if I haven't put my foot in it too badly, I wanted to ask you, is this something that I've spoken to actors like Judi Dench and people who say writers and producers have a failure of imagination these days. They're not giving actresses the breaks that they need.
It's kind of ironic because we're at the peak of our power. Mm-hmm. You know, we really are. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful that you mentioned Judi Dench because she's been my lead for my entire career. When I did my first movie, and then they wanted me to do a TV movie. I thought the script was fabulous. I was told that it would ruin my career in movies, and I said, "But what about Judi Dench, who has done everything her whole career?"
She has.
And it's about where the material is and who you're going to work with. And she's been just an icon for me.
Amazing. And talking of Judi Dench, can you say what it was or who it was that inspired you first as a student, a drama student, to get into acting? Was there any...
It was Snow White and Cinderella, and I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
No, we lived in the country. I didn't go to see a lot of theater or movies, but we did go to see the classic Disney, those great movies. And I had, we roamed across the countryside pretending, and it just caught my imagination. And I remember looking at it and saying, I can do that. And I wanted to do it my whole life.
And that's when you were 8 years old?
Yeah, at least, 7, 8.
And this was your epiphany, this is, as it were, this is what made you want to do it?
It just seemed, I never questioned it. Probably was because I didn't want to be my sister's sidekick anymore. I wanted to have the lead role.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No, I think, and then my life took little twists and turns, and I didn't end up as a freshman in college until I was 22 years old. Really? But as soon as I arrived on the campus of William & Mary, I walked straight into the theater department and auditioned for Twelfth Night, and I got the role of Olivia.
Olivia, oh, that's such a wonderful role.
And so for 4 years, I did theater, but it was in a great liberal arts school.
Okay.
But they had a wonderful triumvirate at that theater department, and the head of the department, Dr. Harold Scammon, was my mentor in all ways. And so that it just kind of solidified. But I also wrote and directed and did.
Oh, you did?
Oh, you had to, it was wonderful. Because you had to do costumes and then you did some sort of stage crew something, and so it was a wonderful education.
So you were working on Shakespeare and the classics, but also contemporary theatre as well.
Yes, I did Cleopatra in my senior year.
Oh, amazing! I wish we had a video of that. It would be amazing.
Yeah. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And do you find? How about theatre in London? I can't remember the last time you did.
Oh, yes. Well, I did Streetcar at the National.
You did Streetcar, that's right.
And then I did, just last year, I did Sunset Boulevard at the E&O.
That's it, yeah. So that would have been amazing. Yes, excellent. I read somewhere that you were also inspired by Katharine Hepburn. Is that right?
Yes.
And what role was it in particular?
It's funny because it was my senior year at William & Mary, and I knew that there were these auditions. There was no formal kind of way. It wasn't an acting school. You kind of had to fend for yourself, and I knew that there were these 2 series of auditions. But I was kind of, biding my time. I was painting scenery late one night, and lo and behold, on this little TV came on Dick Cavett's interview with Katharine Hepburn on his show, and it was the only time she ever did anything on television. And it just mesmerized me. And she's somebody that I've always really, really admired. We both come from Connecticut. Our fathers were doctors, but she's tall, I'm short, but she always seemed, I admired the fact that she seemed to know who she was, and she kind of cut a very individual path through Hollywood. And I listened to her say things like, no regrets, no regrets. And when it was over, I said, okay, you want to do that? Do it. And the next day I went to the head of the department and I said, I'd like you to nominate me for URTC, TCG, URTA. And it was the last day the letter could be stamped.
Oh, okay.
And I went to that series of auditions and got my first job on stage in New York.
Amazing. And what was that? That's right off the bat.
Yes, I was hired by the Phoenix Theatre Company. I was hired to understudy Mary Ure.
Oh, I remember.
We were doing Love for Love.
Okay,
and Mary was let go. And I was put on without any rehearsal.
Oh, wow.
It's quite a story.
That's an amazing...
But I was so green and hungry that I would sit in the back of the theater and watch every rehearsal. And I learned my lines, which is miraculous because most understudies don't have to know your lines until the show's opened.
Yeah.
But somehow, and Hal Prince was directing it, and he came in, it was a matinee, and he said, Glenn, and we went out onto the stage, and he said, I'm thinking about letting Miss Ure go. I'll make my decision during this performance. So after the performance, go up to your dressing room and wait. If you hear that you're wanted down in costumes, I would like you to go on that night. Can you do it? And I said, yes.
I just jolly well figured.
And that happened. I went up to my little garret of a dressing room and heard, well, Glenn Close, please come down to costumes. And the thing about that was that we had just one costume. So I had to get into Mary's costume.
Okay.
With her, she had a very distinctive perfume. So I got into her perfume and was escorted to the star dressing room. She was married to Robert Shaw at the time, and between them, they took care of, I think, 9 children. And the first thing I noticed was that all these empty hooks on the wall from all the pictures of her children that had been taken down. And it was a tragedy for her that happened. It was late in her career, but the extraordinary gift that she gave to me was at a half hour, there's a knock on my door, and I was handed this note. And it said it's a tradition in the English theater for one leading lady to welcome the next. I welcome you. Be strong and brave, Mary Ure.
Oh, my goodness. That's
And
amazing.
And it always astounded me that she didn't say break a leg or
Break a
something.
leg,
She
yeah.
said, be strong and brave. And I think that's basically at the heart of our profession.
It certainly is, my goodness. And so you had that amazing start, in a way, that kind of serendipitous start, like a Hollywood
Yes,
star.
but we had 3 plays to put on.
Right.
So in the second production, I went back up to my 4th floor dressing room and became an understudy again.
Oh, okay.
So that
Yes.
was also
Yeah.
a very good lesson.
Right. And this was the theater. This was the New York theater, of course. When do you think you kind of broke into movies? Was it with Garb, or was it with?
I was playing Charity Barnum with Jim Dale.
Oh yeah.
A wonderful musical by Cy Coleman, and George Roy Hill came to see it with his
George Roy Hill, yes.
brilliant casting. She really defined. She really started the role of casting director, Marion Dougherty.
Right.
And they sat in the audience, and they asked me to come in and do a reading. They were doing the reading of the script, and I got cast in my first movie.
In your first movie, yeah.
Yes.
And was that? What experience was that? Was that a big kind of studio film, or you were having to work very hard on it, or how did that work? I mean, was it a big?
I basically decided, because she was New Englander, so I said, I think I'll be my grandmother Moore,
Okay.
who had a wonderful straight back, and she had a distinctive way of talking. And the funny thing is that I was so convinced that my part would be either the back of my head or someone else's face as I was talking. I couldn't conceive of myself actually being on film. And I remember going to George and saying, I hope you'll take care of me, because I hear that it's a very hard transition from stage to screen. And he said, yeah, you're right.
That's comforting, isn't it? Reassuring.
Yeah, but he took very good care of me. It was with Robin Williams, beloved Robin, and my first scene was a walking scene holding a grocery bag, and Robin was this huge star, and they had this big crowd screaming for them that they tried to desperately to keep quiet as we were doing this. And I had never had to walk and talk and stop on a
your mark,
a mark.
Yeah.
And it was, panic was just here. And Robin was so wonderful. And also, I didn't know that you had a little mic and you didn't have to shout your lines.
Yeah, that's the theater, isn't it? Yeah.
I know. I was used to projecting, so it was like it took a while
hitting
to
Rosette,
adjust.
exactly. And then you obviously there's this. Garf is this great movie. And then, would you say the next step was the Big Chill, or was it the Big Chill? Can you say something about the Big Chill?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I know you were here a few years ago for the reception.
We had a reading of the Big Chill.
reunion.
This is we had a reading of the Big Chill with Larry Kasdan in New York. And I was asked to read that part, the part I got. I had dated Kevin Kline, who had just broken up with my best friend, who had been married to Bill Hurt, who was also reading. Right. And Mary Beth was asked to read, and Kevin had just dated. I mean, the whole thing was like, and it was crazy. I think it was an extraordinary experience in every way. We rehearsed for a month, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
At the Columbia Studios.
Right.
And we'd play this game that, all of us hadn't done that many films. Bill was the big star of that group. And we'd go out and we'd see somebody on the lot who would look just a little bit like, somebody would say, and we say, oh my God, there's Charles Bronson. Oh yeah, no, he's looking at us. And it was just a guy, somebody who looked a little bit like Charles Bronson.
Oh my goodness. What I want to do now, we are kind of jumping ahead, but I want to play in a clip, if I may, of a performance of yours, which I think is fascinating. There are so many. It's your performance as Sonny von Bülow in Reversal of Fortune. So could we have the clip, please, of Reversal of Fortune? Part of the reason I love that scene is that it could almost be directed by Louis Buñuel. It's so surreal, and you see all these people screaming, and you think, what are they scared of? Have I just been watching a dream sequence? Then that something strange and unreal and surreal is happening, and then you have that wonderful scene of a tiger cub, of all things, has appeared, and it appears to be, in a most sly and subversive way, an extension of Sonny's own personality, that the only person that isn't scared of the cub is Sonny. What was it like working on that movie? I find it so fascinating.
It was fascinating. I felt it was written very much from a man's point of view.
Right.
I was not allowed to talk to anybody who really knew Sonny. She was still alive in a coma in the Columbia Hospital. And she was very protected, and all her friends were very protective, which, you had great respect for. So I always felt that if I'd had a chance to really, really kind of talk to somebody, I did learn that she kind of walked like a dancer, that she was very, very shy, that she was put in this position of being like a princess of an incredibly wealthy family, in a role that she wasn't exactly comfortable in. So, I mean, she was a fascinating character. And the reason why I really, besides that, there was one scene that I just loved when I read the script, was when she's eating ice cream, smoking a cigarette with dark glasses on.
Yeah.
And basically, because she was diabetic, she was killing herself in front of everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's pretty powerful.
It's very powerful, and the fact that that Sonny, in a way, is absent, but her presence kind of suffuses the rest of the movie, and you have that memory of her as a young woman who is strong, and then is faced with the duplicity, in a way, of Klaus, who, as you say, I mean, I remember Klaus. I spoke to him once on the telephone as a journalist, who was a kind of very strange eminence grise, certainly in London in those days. I mean, the most amazing thing about that movie, as you say, it looks like a period movie. It looks like it's happening in the past. These characters, they look like the Vanderbilts, and it's in 1920. Yeah. But actually, it was a live issue right now. It was in 1990. It was a real live wire issue.
It was. The whole Dershowitz.
Yeah.
Dershowitz was, I mean, he's a very, very prominent lawyer, and the fact that he won that suit was incredible. But it was funny because Klaus was, I was walking into the Ivy restaurants once in London, and I heard this voice, "I was Jeremy Irons' understudy." And I looked back, and it was Klaus von Bülow.
Well, there's Klaus von Bülow, yes. Oh, my goodness, what is it? The whole temperature of the room must have gone down. Yes, I know, how awful. And what was it like working with Jeremy Irons?
Oh, well, Jeremy, we had done The Real Thing together.
Of course, that's right.
Stage.
It was for Stoppard, yes.
Yeah. What do you think the real thing
what did
is? I read your mind.
Yeah.
It's a play by Tom Stoppard.
Goodness sake. This is a certificate PG event, ladies and gentlemen. Please, I don't want to take it up to 15. But yes, this is a play, and you'd worked with on Tom Stoppard.
Yeah,
of course,
Tom Stoppard. And so,
again, there's levels of reality happening in that play.
We knew each other very well, and we really helped each other. We had I can't say that we had a great time with the director.
Oh, really? Did you not get on with it?
But we had a great cinematographer. And
who was it? I can't remember.
Who, the director?
The cinematographer.
Oh, I can't remember his name. He was a wonderful Italian man.
Oh, right.
Who worked with Bertolucci.
Yes, I'll have to look that up. But yes.
Anyway.
Oh, so you had a difficult time with the director.
A little bit difficult. But, I was, it worked out incredibly well.
It certainly did.
Because I knew him so well. And
it's one of the great you've done so many great portrayals of domestic intimacy. That's what I find fascinating, is the intimacy of it, which is at the same time estranged and difficult, and there's a theatrical display of power going on within the marriage, and also levels of deceit and duplicity and bad faith, but also, as you portrayed, real love. I mean, Reversal of Fortune wouldn't have meant anything if they really didn't like each other in the first place. The point is that they were in love, and that's what comes off. So I love that clip as well. It comes off so strongly in your performance as well. It's sexy as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as sexy as you like, especially touching his hand at dinner. It's so transgressive and
Yeah.
taboo. It's so live.
Well, that lion scene actually happened in
Did
real
it?
life.
You see,
Yeah.
now we're so
Yeah.
used to CGI. Everybody thinks,
No, that's a real lion.
Yeah.
First of all, that's a real tiger. He's a
Tiger,
tiger.
yeah.
And it did happen in their life.
Oh,
She was
wow.
absolutely no fear of it, and everyone else ran away, and they just ended up together with this tiger cub.
That's amazing. And what was it like working with
With the tiger
with
cub?
a tiger cub? Did you have to? You
A little
you were
scary.
a little, yeah. It must have been.
He had a good handler.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you
My
must
daughter
have.
was a baby, and I have wonderful pictures of Jeremy's son holding my little baby during that shoot.
Okay, that's amazing. I want to, if it's okay, I wanted to go on to another film now. We're kind of going a bit out of order with this. I'm going to go back to one of I think, your greatest performances. It's so many to choose from, but I want to have a clip now from Dangerous Liaisons. Again, all about intimacy, all about sex, all about power, and the display of power and all the rest of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, can we play in a clip, please, from Dangerous Liaisons? It's an amazing scene. If ever there's an argument, you have to watch movies on the big screen. It's that. I mean, that's a real close-up. That's a 15 megaton close-up. I mean, that's so amazing. I remember the first time I saw that movie, I remember being genuinely scared in a way that you might be scared at a horror film, of being in that position, of everybody looking at you in a theater and then starting to boo you. It's such an incredible performance. Can you say a little bit about how you worked on that role, and obviously particularly that scene is so iconic, really?
I think the key to her was that she was a brilliant woman who was brought up in a convent, and when she got out was expected to be married off and become some man's property, and with, at the whim of males.
Yeah.
And she was so astute and smart that she observed how things work. And she made it her goal in life to never be used like that. And so in some ways, she was a woman acting like a man in a man's world.
Right.
And she gets censured for it. You know, the original book when it came out by Leclos was first banned, and then he was forced by his publisher to punish her even more by giving her smallpox.
Oh, my
and
God,
as
yes.
if her soul showed on her face. And I thought, well, yeah, I seem to play women who have to be doubly punished.
Well, yes. I mean, there's a lot of sexual political hypocrisy going on. I mean, John Malkovich doesn't get to be punished, but your character does get to be. And what was it like doing that? Did you have to do many takes to do that scene? I mean, was it like, or could you do it straight away?
That was the only take we did.
No.
And the situation was we were shooting outside of Paris in someplace, and it got to be 11 o'clock at night, and it was whether they're going to try that scene, and of course time was running out with the crew, and it was a movie that didn't have many money to waste, so the idea was, I mean, we tried it, and knowing that I'd have to redo all the makeup if it didn't work, so it was kind of now or never, and so that's the one and only take.
That's amazing. It's such an incredible scene. It's such an incredible scene. Do you think that part was? Would you say that was one of the most important roles in your career, the Dangerous Liaisons? Or
I think so. Yeah, I think it was just. It's a magnificent story, and magnificently adapted by Christopher Hampton. So
That's
the
right.
writing was
Yes.
absolutely superb.
The writing's absolutely terrific, isn't it?
And so there's so much to play. And again, I had such respect for her.
Yeah.
You know, for what for how she was trying to survive. You know, and finally that flip at the end when she says war.
Yes.
It's very, very powerful because it's a woman refusing to let a man dictate her life.
Right.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking because basically the basis of that story is how much they love each other.
Yeah.
You know, and that love has turned into a destructive.
Has kind of become poisoned. Yeah. Can you say something? I want to talk a little bit about your TV work. Can you say something, maybe for people who haven't seen the show very much, or maybe they're just getting it, is Damages, the FX show Damages, because it's such a huge hit, Damages. What's it like? Is that something that's important to you right now, or what's it like working on that show?
Oh yeah, I loved working on Damages, and the writing again, because I really believe in just going where there's great writing.
Right.
And I was given that first pilot and was just knocked out by it.
Right.
But it was the only script I read. You know,
Okay.
and then you sign your life away for 6 years.
Right.
But there was something about that script that I remember Anne Roth, the wonderful designer, costume designer, is a great friend of mine, and I had her read it and said, "What do you think?" She said, "You would be crazy if you didn't play that part," because it was a great part. Again, rare, and for a woman of that age, and you search for kind of how to get into her head, and I think it was in the first. I don't know if it was in the first episode. Yeah, I think it was in the first episode. Scene with Rose Byrne where she brings me papers to sign, and I realized that Patty's genius is that she can say something, and at the end, do something that makes the person unsure if what she's just said is true or not.
Right.
You know, until and that was, she has this genius for keeping people off balance.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and it was thrilling, and I love television because it goes very fast.
Yeah.
And the three writers on that show would work and change things up to the very beginning. So I got a very acute short-term memory.
Right.
You know, so you didn't want to learn the lines a little too soon because some of them probably could have been changed.
Away,
yeah.
And I mean, it's a conversation I have all the time with people here and in London. Is series television, is this where it's happening now for an actor? That a lot of actors think, you know, the movies are great, obviously, but we're seeing so many outstanding TV shows, you know, The Sopranos and Mad Men and all the rest of it, and Damages. Do you find as an actor that maybe what is sometimes called long form television, long form, is that maybe even offering you as much or even more than movies now, or not?
I think in many ways it offers you more.
Right.
I mean, the thing is, it's hard to tell a story without truncating it in an hour and 15 minutes or 2 hours.
Yeah.
The luxury of having even a miniseries is that the writer can choose how many episodes they need to tell the story deeply and correctly, and that's a wonderful thing to be able to be a part of.
Right.
And there's less compromise, I think, in that. And I think also with the advent of, I mean, I can track it because the first time I produced was Sarah Plain and Tall, and that was when Hallmark Hall of Fame was the classy place to produce television. That was pre-HBO.
Pre-HBO.
And when you think what's happened since then, it's extraordinary because the BBC informed HBO. You know, all the golden age of BBC, then, you know, Colin Cowler, they all came over here, and they, or at least Colin did, and HBO changed the landscape. Yeah. And now there's all these, now Google's getting into it. I mean, I think the frenzy over content, which I think is happening now because there's so many places where they're doing stories. I'm wondering how that will last, you know, how it will affect quality work, or will there be more quality work? But I just finished a pilot for Amazon, written by George Sanders, who's one of our great short story writers.
Really?
And he'd never done a series, and it's so far out there.
Oh my goodness! I didn't know about this.
Okay, I've never played a character like this before, so I'm in, you know.
That's amazing.
And I have no idea whether it will go. I hope it does, because
That's amazing, because he's Lincoln in the Bardo is his novel. I know that how amazing that is. Yeah. Yeah. That's terrific. What I want to do now, I know this is a little bit cliche because we haven't got all the time in the world, but I'd like to play in a clip really now. And again, we're kind of going backwards in time. I'd like to play a clip from Fatal Attraction. It's not the obvious scene at the end, but I'd like to play it again, mainly because it kind of came back into my mind watching the clip from The Wife in a weird way, because there were some interesting ideas buzzing in my mind. Anyway, can we please play in the clip now from Fatal Attraction? Again, what I think everybody loves about that is the kind of kiloton aspect to the acting. It's just everything, every word, every shot, every line, every face on the screen. It just delivers an incredible payload of emotional anxiety and disquiet. It's like watching, I don't know, a scene from Shakespeare or from a kind of ferocious speech. Have you had to kind of live with Alex as like your Mr. Hyde figure? I mean, are people too obsessed with that role now? I mean, do you think that, what do you think about it now?
I don't have any problem living with Alex because I loved her.
Yeah.
You know, she was highly misunderstood, very out of control and in need. But people still come up to me, I mean, men a lot, come and say, "You scared the shit out of me."
It's true, it was scary. It was scary.
It was 30 years ago we made that film.
I know, it could be yesterday. I'm still scared now. There's we haven't got a clip on it, and I won't go out. There's an amazing SNL sketch with Glenda's hilarious. You've probably seen it when Alex shows up to an encounter group therapy kind of seminar. And I can't remember, the moderator says, "Have we all had a chance to experience some personal growth?" And Alex said, "Yeah, I got up the courage to throw acid on my boyfriend's car." Well done, Alex. That's amazing.
I remember that. It was fun.
But is that something, when you got that role, did you think, wow, this is the motherlode, this is some juice in this role? Or did you see it at first, how iconic it was going to be?
Oh, no. What I wanted to do was take a role that could be kind of generically the bad woman and try to make her as human as possible.
Right.
You know, to try to understand her behavior, even if the audience didn't understand it or kind of had a generic reaction to it. And that led me, I think that's the movie that I did most research on, because I was so fascinated to find out, number one, is the bunny boiling possible? And, and I gave the script to two different psychiatrists, and they said, yes, that's possible. And so then my question was, well, what would create that kind of behavior? And those are all secrets that I had that are hinted at in the movie. For example, when she's spying on Dan, giving his little girl the bunny rabbit, and then runs to the hedge and throws up. Why? The psychiatrist, we came to the conclusion that she had been incested. She's kind of strange about her father.
Right.
That she had been incested at a very early age, for enough time to really, really destroy part of her, and that she probably was forced to do things that would make her gag, throw up. And so when she sees her at that age with a man the age of her father, that's a trigger point that she has no control over, and she runs and she throws up. So that kind of secret made me love her. The trouble is, there was I think that's maybe why she stayed so much in people's psyche, because there is something kind of sad and mysterious about her.
Right.
Right. And then also a big difference was when we shot the second ending and made her into a real kind of sick psychopath. Right. Which originally she wasn't. She killed herself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So she's a heartbreaking character, and one that again was a big moment for me in my career.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take some questions. We don't have an enormous amount of time, but I'd like to take some questions from the audience, if we could. I don't. Yes, do we have somebody here?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello? Oh.
Yep, we've got you.
First of all, thank you so much for all of your wonderful performances. As a woman, you have taken on so many projects that really are very inspiring and really give women a strong message. So thank you very much for that. My question is there work that you do within yourself that remains constant and the same before you begin new projects, whether they're film or television? Something that you do within yourself to prepare?
A kind of general theory that I've had for a long time is that I like to come from as much of a place of order as I can so that my work can go anywhere, be as crazy. For me to come from a crazy disordered place into a crazy disordered character or whatever that process is, which you basically break yourself down and put yourself back together again, would be untenable. I think so. It's not like I'm a control freak with order, but I like to feel that that's where I'm coming from. I mean, simplistically, when I'm doing theater, I always like to have my dressing table ordered before I go out on the stage. You know, it's just a psychological thing for me, because I really believe that you should have nothing holding you back as far as any possibility within your work. But I'm basically an introvert. So I've, of course, learned any good introvert knows how to pretend to be an extrovert. So I think also at this point in my life, I'm just saying, do things that bring you joy. Be with people you enjoy. And do work that you can be proud of. And that's basically where I am.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, thank you for your time today. It's wonderful that you're here. 2 questions. Quick first question is, do you still work with a coach on your projects, an acting coach? And the second one is, through the landscape of your career, how do you see the change of women in the industry, how far it's come and where it's going? Do you see real great progress in the future? Has that been your experience? And where do you think that can be lifted up and enhanced?
I'm not sure I'm the one to answer that question, but I do not work with a coach. My wonderful coach, Harold Guskin, now has dementia. As far as women, I've never lived in Hollywood, so I can't say that I'm kind of in the absolute nest of all those, where all those issues are. I think actually that the advent of cable and all the other places where people can express themselves and get projects made will be hopefully very helpful for women, because there'll be more places that you can go and try to get money for what you want to do. But, I don't know. I think it will always be hard. I think the world will always find something problematic about women. So I'm sorry, I'm not articulate on that. I don't know all, kind of I go home and I hide and then I come out and go to work. And I've been very, very lucky to work with some incredible groups of people and some wonderful women. So and I really believe in women getting parity with pay, if they have the equal kind of role in a film. I also am very realistic about, you get clout for the kind of salary you get if your movies make money, if you're talking about the studio system. And I think that's problematic for women, because there are not very many. I mean, thank God for Wonder Woman. And she was so great in that. So hopefully, you chip away at it. And they just have to keep chipping.
Yes, I think somebody has a microphone right here, yes.
I think it's just fantastic as an actress and actor that when you get into character, you get to escape yourself and be somebody else. You ever find it difficult getting out of that character when the movie's over?
The only character who kind of haunted me, well, 2 characters have haunted me, was Norma Desmond when I first did it on stage, and then Alex Forrest. Haunting meaning she stays kind of in your mind. It's not. It's just you have to kind of go through a mourning period if you've deeply examined a character and grown a love for her, and then all of a sudden she's not there anymore. I do think that you kind of go through a period of mourning, and you've got to slowly let it go. But it hasn't been with every character, no. And I've always found it easier to work than to figure out life.
Yes.
Glenn, what's your next project? You mentioned you did a pilot, I believe. Do you have something else planned coming up, another movie?
Well, I'm waiting to hear
besides
about the
this
pilot, and then waiting to hear, is this wood?
Yeah.
Somebody knock on wood for me about the Sunset Boulevard movie. Thank you.
Everybody knock on the floor, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
It is an honor to meet you and hear about your wonderful career from yourself. I'm curious, what do you think you'd be doing if you weren't an actor?
I think I'd be with George Schaller watching animals. You know, I love animal behavior. I'm fascinated by it. And I believe in the work that the great naturalists of the world and the people are trying to keep wild places for us. They're to me, you know, I can't imagine a world without a place that isn't inundated by human beings. So I think I'd do something like that. I wouldn't mind sitting for hours waiting for a monkey to come by.
How did it feel when you were asked to do the voiceover in Tarzan for, I think it was Andie MacDowell was the actress playing Jane?
I was furious because I really, really wanted to play that part. And it's the only time that I had a photo session. I put myself totally in the character and got into the costumes of the... I so believed in that story. It's such an incredible story. And I was told that the director wanted somebody, that the director wanted Isabelle Adjani, but the American studio said, no, you have to have an American. So he said, I'll get somebody who looks like Isabelle Adjani. And then apparently, I mean, Andie MacDowell is a wonderful person, and it was a horrible thing to happen to her. But I think in the first week they realized that she couldn't, pull it off. So they came back to me, and I was pissed off. But I love the story so much, and I know that wonderful writer. He wrote Man for All Seasons. Didn't he do the first Tarzan?
Robert Bolt.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, didn't he write that? Or
I
no?
think he might. I can't remember, but Robert. Yeah, Robert's the one we're thinking about. Yeah.
I love the script, so I said, okay, I'd do it. So.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. Yes.
Hello. Hello, I'm from Costa Rica. I'm so happy to be here. I really admire you so much. And it's funny that they make questions about the gender, woman, male, because one of my favorite roles for you was Albert Nobbs.
Albert Nobbs, that's right.
I think that Oscar belongs to you, really. It's incredible. You were amazing. Can you tell a little about that role? Because it was just transforming, inspiring. I'm an actor too, so it was just wonderful.
I loved that character. I did her off Broadway very early on in my career with Simone Ben Moussa, who had done it in France and London, and then had come over. And it was very austere production, a lot of mime and everything. And this character stayed in my head. So in the early 90s, I got the rights to it. And it took me 14 years to develop the script and to finally come to the point where we were in Ireland actually shooting the film. So I'm very proud of that movie, and I love that character. So thank you for that.
Yes, we have one more.
Hi,
First one down.
I know that you have done a lot of advocacy for people with mental illness, and you've also played characters with mental illnesses. So can you talk a little bit about Hollywood's depictions of mental illness and maybe what you think film can do going forward on that subject?
That's a very good question, because when I did Fatal Attraction, none of the psychiatrists that I went to even brought up the possibility that she might have some sort of mental disorder. But I hear from the kind of guru of borderline personality that that's kind of an extreme case, which could have been triggered by her childhood. So, I think it's a hard question because it's very easy to make somebody who's mentally ill the villain, and you always are finding a protagonist and an antagonist. And it's the easiest thing. If it's not, the Germans during World War II, it's some crazy person. And so I think that's a tough question because mental illness is a very complex issue. And I think there are films being made. I think more films have to be made where basically this is real about, you have somebody who's dealing with real issues. I mean, Claire Danes, who's bipolar, in her show, I think did a lot for it, just to kind of, we want to normalize, if you will, mental illness because it touches one out of every 4 people. We were all touched by it. So, and my sister, who has bipolar disorder, and her son, who has schizophrenia, they have viable lives. And I think that's an important thing to try to portray. And, but first of all, to talk about just openly and freely.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've come to, this could go on forever, but we don't have all the time in the world. So ladies and gentlemen, please give it up once again for Ms. Glenn Close. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
The young Joan, and Annie's right back there.